From TMP to TTNG, for sure the cure and those tired meme jeans. Helican Sella and the promise ring. Sunny day, real estate and rites of spring. Prince Twinkle daddies help keep the dream alive. I constantly thank God for Algernon and Remo Christie front drive. Mineral, snowing, high tide hotelier and more. Real emo only consists of the DC emotive hardcore. But you gotta admit, Kyle and Ellie really on that emo bullshit. You gotta admit that Kyle and Ellie really on that emo bullshit. Have you heard the tired and disavowed lonely word? Have you heard the disavowed and lonely word? Have you heard the lonely disavowed word? Have you heard the tired and lonely disavowed word?
All right. Episode 63, 2 weeks in a row for the E-word. Feels good. I'm Kyle, recording here in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm joined by Ellie over there in Austin, Texas. Ellie.
What's up? What's up? I have a doctor's appointment later today, like another doctor's appointment. So everyone, fingers crossed that I am not diabetic. I guess we'll see. We should say something about like what happened in Atlanta a couple days ago, right? I don't know. Like, even if it's dated by the time the podcast comes out, I think we should still like say something about it, just because I feel like I haven't seen anyone like really talking about it, except to say either don't joke about this or why isn't anyone talking about this?
Yeah.
I think a day or two ago, I think it was Tuesday, right? In Atlanta, a 21-year-old skinny white kid went to a spa and shot it up. 8 people were injured, 6 of whom were Asian women. There's kind of been this trend that's been reported on like over the last about year or so since the start of the pandemic of this anti-Asian sentiment and hate crimes and violence against Asian Americans. And this is not only another example of that, but also commingled with, from what I understand, this kind of deep-seated misogyny and hatred of women, because the man who committed this crime was described as religious and a sex addict. He called himself a sex addict and said that he was trying to eliminate sources of sexual temptation. These women were targets in that sense. I just feel like this is something that we should talk about, not only because like it's such like a disgusting hate crime, but because things are not just back to normal under the Biden administration. Blue MAGA didn't help anybody, and these issues are still extremely. It's not just that it's systemic, although that's part of it too. It's that the ramp up of this rhetoric over the last year and the ramp up of misogynist incel rhetoric over the last however many years, it's not just gonna dissipate over the course of a couple months. This is something that I think we're going to be seeing like the reverberating effects of the last 4 or 5 years of increased right-wing radicalization. Probably for another 5 or so years at the very least, and it's always going to be something that we need to keep in check and keep an eye on. You know, our heart goes out to everyone who is affected in Atlanta. Our heart goes out to everyone who is part of the affected communities around America and around the world. And that is our overly serious opening rant for the day.
Thank you for that. I think it's definitely necessary. I think there's the people that have been reporting on it have a good and shitty job at minimizing what actually happened. Like,
Yeah.
No one wants to say like this is like a mass murder. No one wants to say this is domestic terrorism and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's absolutely domestic terrorism, and the cop who arrested him said something like he had a bad day.
Yeah,
and this is what happened.
Yeah,
What the
that's what I
fuck?
heard too. Yeah, people are trying to characterize him as like a good Christian, like, oh, he walked around school with the Bible. It was the last thing I read or something. He was such a quiet, nice boy. I would never expect anything from this. Like,
I didn't really hear anything about this like until like I saw like a couple like snippets of stuff, but I had to like literally look it up and read like the New
Same.
York Times article to like learn anything about it.
it was, yeah, it's ridiculous. You'd think you'd hear a lot more about this because isn't this the first major shooting since COVID?
I
the
kind of get the beginning of COVID and like shootings and like us
Yeah, I
being
guess
afraid
Kyle
that World War
Rittenhouse
III was going to happen.
too. Yeah.
Yes, Kyle
Yeah.
Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can't believe Kyle Rittenhouse feels like this entire year has felt like 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like somebody, I remember like 2 or 3 months ago, somebody mentioned Tiger King, and I was like, whoa, that was like 2017, right? 2018. They're like, yo, that was in March, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit.
That was 7th wave emo time.
That was...
There's that Vladimir Lenin quote, right? There are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen.
Yeah, I love the Beatles.
All right, I think that we've done a good pivot out of that heavy talk.
Yeah, solidarity with the
it's-
Asian community
Yes.
and sex workers.
That other voice that we're hearing here is
Oh, yeah.
we haven't even say.
is Brandon, the ever effervescent front person for Home Is Where,
Howdy,
which
y'all.
is quickly becoming one of the flagship bands of the current DIY scene. How are you doing?
I'm good. I was just appointed as CEO of Fifth Wave Emo, and I'm very excited. I hope I do y'all
Oh,
proud.
so
And
you go all the way back to like 2003.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, right when what do you call it? The Sugar We're Going Down Swinging song came out. That was me.
It's called We're Going Down is the funniest part of that.
Oh, really? Damn. Yeah, it's been a minute since I had a Fall Out Boy moment.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked to have Brandon here. As we've sort of made some jokes about, we will be talking about the waves of emo and fifth wave emo in this episode. I think at this moment, I feel like everyone wants to chime in about the whole wave ship of emo. So I'm glad that we have you to talk about it, since you have flown your flag high for fifth wave emo. So I can't wait to learn more about that.
The hook. We got to put that closer to the end of the episode so people listen.
So any follow-up for episode 62? We put that out like 2 days ago, but
Yeah, I had.
enjoyed it. I listened to do it yesterday.
Oh, how did you like it?
It was really cool to hear just you two for the first time in a while. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Not that I don't enjoy any of your guests, but it had been a hot minute since we got some quality Kyle and Ellie time. So it was nice to hear what was going on in your lives, and just like a totally, I don't know. Yeah, I just thought it was a really good episode. It was comfy. It was nice.
Thanks.
Highly recommend.
There's only been like 2 other episodes where we were by ourselves, right? A 2011 like rest of,
oh yeah,
and the Hobo Johnson episode.
the infamous Hobo Johnson episode. My partner forgot the name of Hobo Johnson, and they were like, "Who's that friend zone guy?" And I was like, "Oh, Hobo Johnson."
Hobo Johnson and the Freight Trains.
Is that really the band name?
No.
Oh, okay.
There are Hobo Johnson and the Love Makers. I was
Hobo Johnson and the
referring-
Not Virgins.
Yeah, I was referring to the Johnny Hobo and the Freight Trains.
yeah.
That's what I was
That's
thinking.
what-
I was like, "There's no way
Yeah.
he ripped it off that hard."
Which, by the way, speaking of Pat the Bunny, I'm sorry to pivot like this, but I tweeted from the E-word account something that I thought was gonna get more love than it did, and in retrospect, I totally understand that very few people have ever listened to this. But Pat the Bunny's rap project, Playtime Posse, have either of you listened to that?
No.
No.
It's on SoundCloud. I would recommend you check it out. The track that most people reference is the Breakfast All Day track, where he's
what kind of recommendation is this? Is this like a haha got you? I wasted 3 minutes of your time recommendation, or this is actually pretty cool. You might like it.
It is enchantingly bad. Like,
okay,
it is it's like fascinating, like almost competent, like, and you will want to listen to more than one song. My personal favorite song is Bags of Dro, which is the one that I quoted in the tweet that was like, sold a dime bag, bought some pants, now I'm wearing them, police hassle me just because I sell heroin, which is like the hardest bar of all time.
Any plugs before we get into the episode, just because they're going to get lost?
Do you guys want to go first?
No preference. I'll just say review us on iTunes, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and anywhere that you haven't followed us.
Review us on iTunes. It helps so fucking much. Like,
it actually does.
And also, I just am narcissistic and like hearing people's thoughts.
It's fun. I get it. Yeah, I'm in the band Home Is Where. We have an album, and I emphasize album to the full extent on Bandcamp and Spotify. It's called I Became Birds, where we have like merch on Knife Punch Records, on their website or whatever, if you want to support us. And we got some really cool things coming up, so why don't you give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. My Twitter is at Bob Dylan Smells, and my Instagram is I wonder what Bob Dylan smells like, and I have no plans on changing them anytime soon.
I was gonna say your Twitter's been like gaining full like some real steam like last couple months or so. I've noticed. Like, yeah, you went from fucking 200 something followers to like 1,000 something followers, which is really impressive. Proud of y'all.
Yeah, we're at like almost like 1,200 followers, which is nuts because like at first I literally before Home Is Where, like it says I made it in like 2019. I think I made it literally to see the tweet where Kanye called out Bob Dylan to collaborate, because I was like, I gotta see this tweet, this is hilarious. And then ignored it for I guess like a year, and then Danny from Knife Punch was like, you should probably make a Twitter because that's where all the DIY discourse is, because I was catching up on like old e-words, so I was still thinking that like Reddit was the place. Not that I never really went on Reddit to begin with. Yeah, I found out very hard that was not the place. So decided posting on Twitter. I tried doing stuff on Twitter where it was like wholesome posting, like trying to just be like really nice and really cordial. I used to like post about really cute trees I saw, like, and would be like, wow, this is a nice tree, and then nobody really seemed to care. So I was like, okay, well, I want people to listen to my music that aren't just my buddies. So let me see how people are spreading out their music. And it was by people being smartasses. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to be a smartass and see where this goes. Started making
the For Your Health approach.
Dude, yeah, seriously. Like For Your Health has their Twitter game is bomb. I knew I had to do something different on Twitter when I saw that Hayden got like 1,000 likes for making fun of Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying of cancer. So I was like, okay, well, I have to do I have to do something like this. Like, what did they say? They said it was like, was it girl boss energy when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died from pancreatic cancer? I was like, holy shit. Simultaneously the best and worst tweet I've ever seen in my life. I love it. I love this energy. So yeah, I decided to meme myself into relevancy, and so far it's worked.
Yeah, I feel like people accept like the mean tweets much easier from bands, because when RBG died and I tweeted rest in peace Justice Allen Ginsburg, people just thought I was an asshole.
Oh shit. I do love Allen Ginsburg though.
Not to get into like the whole separate the art from the artist thing, but dude was like, I'm pretty sure like an active advocate for NAMBLA, the North American NAMBLA Love Association.
Yeah, from what I've read in like third person bios about him or whatever, it was like more or less like a free speech kind of thing, which is still like still really fucked up. But I'm pretty glad that Alan wasn't an actual, like, these people are people kind of, I don't know what the hell to call it, but from what I understand, it was more like these people have a right to speak I don't know if he condoned their actions or not. Allen Ginsberg is a very nuanced. All the beats are super nuanced. William Burroughs killed his wife.
Mhm.
William
Kerouac
Burroughs
was a
straight up
piece of
murdered.
shit.
Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that like I'm super obsessed with the beats and probably always will be.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get into it. My observation of kind of like the hype of your album drop, what it sort of reminded me of, and the Home Is Where hype kind of reminded me of 2018 with the Awake But Still in Bed hype, where it was sort of like a combination of
Oh.
like the DIY emo community and like the music writers at the same time, like pivoting just to be like, this is an excellent record by a new band. And I was just kind of wondering, in your eyes, like, how did that all like align and happen so perfectly for you guys?
I think it was literally like right time, right place,
Yeah.
like that kind of situation. We put out the single in October, just because we were planning on putting out the record in 2020, but through no fault of anybody, we were desperate for horn players, but every single person who could play horns had something come up where they couldn't do it. And it wasn't like they were being dicks about it or anything like that. It was literally just life got in the way. So we went through literally five people we went through. And then finally Wes Meadows from Flower Pot Records, I reached out to them because I was listening to a couple records off their label and they had horns on them and every single one was Wes. So I was like, yo, can you please help us out? And they were like more than happy to do it. They kept in communication with me and all that, which was a blessing, because I kind of like get anxiety after going through it like 5 times and not hearing from somebody for a couple of days. I'm like, oh God, is it going to happen? I'm sure I'd be on the hunt for like another one. But we put out the single as like, because we told all of our friends, because that's who cared at that time, was just our buddies, was like, yeah, we have this album, but we're waiting on a few things to come. Here's a single to hold you over to see what we're working. And then I tweeted the single. It's like, hey, I'm in this band, check us out, yada yada yada. Ian Cohen picked it up, and then from Ian Cohen you had funny enough, Awake But Still in Bed commented on it and was like, wow, this is really good. I still have the screenshot because I'm like, oh, my heart is gonna go in my little like photo album when I'm like 90 years old and going through dementia, like, this band liked your band. And but yeah, they commented on it, and then sorry, that was a little morbid, but and then a couple other people just started fucking with us. They listened to the EP, I guess, and were like, yo, this is pretty cool. And then they heard the production on the single and everybody got really excited. And then it kind of just took on a life of its own, the single. And then I did like the interview route where I just went on like Good Noise podcast, talked with a couple other people that helped spread hype. And then we got signed to Knife Punch. And then Knife Punch literally learned me the internet, like how to talk in the DIY sphere, because I don't know, I wasn't really, I know it seems like I'm painfully online right now, but like before, like the last couple months, like I literally really did not do much on social media. I would post like pictures on Instagram and do like little funny stories on Instagram, but that was it. Like, don't fuck with Facebook because no one will see it. Twitter was, I was still figuring out Twitter. Didn't have a TikTok yet. We made a MySpace before we did anything. Like, that was like our joke. It was like, oh, haha. And we put like a secret single on there for people to find it. And nobody did until the day before the record came out. So I thought that was pretty fun.
So Knife Punch wasn't in the picture until after the single came out last year?
Yeah, Knife Punch, heard us through the single. I actually hit up Knife Punch. I emailed them our first EP, our only EP technically. And I'm gonna run that joke into the ground before the episode's over. And my buddy Tyler, who's in Guilt, really vouched for us. They were like, this band is gonna blow up.
Guilt's a great
whether
band,
you know it or not. I love Guilt. Guilt is amazing, and I'm really excited for what they're doing next, because I believe Ash is on vocals now, and they're a really good singer. So I'm very excited to see what's up for Guilt. But yeah, shout out to Tyler, shout out to everybody in Guilt. You guys. I don't think we'd be here right now if y'all didn't have our back. It's just like literally, it's just Florida love. Like, as soon as like Guilt vouched for us, like on Twitter and stuff, we got a bunch of Florida bands that followed us, like Snacking, who rule. I think you talked about them putting out something on last episode, and it's really fucking good. We got Worst Party Ever was really nice to us too, and they're originally from. I don't think they're based in Florida anymore, but I know for a fact they started out here, and just a bunch of really awesome people. And then I made friends with people like Your Arms Are My Cocoon, and they really helped us out a lot by talking about us. And I also became friends with Lobster Fight, who have also vouched for us, and just a lot of really nice people. And now since the records come out, like insane, like people I never thought would give a shit about us, like Stars Hollow and like Origami Angel, like I've like had super casual conversations with them. Like Alex from Dogleg and I are buddies now. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's just literally like it's all love, it's all friendship. Like there's like the most businessy talk is like, we should play a show together. That would be really fun. And then that's where it ends. Otherwise we're all just like being really nice and cordial to each other, like just being like buddies, like as if we were old friends or something. It's really, really cool. I think I kind of strayed away from the question a little bit. Is there I have
No, you're
a little bit of
good.
an ADD brain.
More things about Twitter though, is like it's been amusing to watch people try and like describe your band and place genre tags and comparisons, and it's been funny to watch you like react to those. But I
Yeah.
am more curious about if you think that's frustrating or is it entertaining to you?
It's entertaining because literally my approach is like, this is like, I don't know. I'm also really into comedy, like outside of like music and stuff. Like I'm really interested in like Andy Kaufman, with like
Andy
his
Kaufman,
like how
Eric
he,
Andre, that whole
yeah,
like,
that's
yeah.
yes. I'm like, I was like, what would happen if Andy Kaufman was super into emo? And so I listen to a lot of emo. Like it's not just like, like this is just one of the many genres I'm interested in. I mean, which it is, but it's like it's like my go-to. This is like, this is my life, oh God. Like, I feel like how New York hardcore dudes like feel about hardcore, about emo, where it's like, you don't understand
Right.
this shit, man.
Yeah.
You gotta be here. You gotta understand, you gotta be in the streets looking at houses going, damn. So like every emo person, whether it's like the Kinsella brothers or like the dude from Jawbreaker, like they all hate the word emo and they hate being associated with it, or maybe like not hate it, but they're just like roll their eyes at it or whatever, where I'm doing the exact opposite, where if you compare us to any other genre, I'm rolling my eyes at it because we're like an emo band. So we're doing like the inside out of that, which I think is pretty funny. So that's where most of the jokes come from, is just that idea of I'm doing the exact opposite of what our I almost said forefathers, of what bands before us did. It's not that serious, but
Our sacred ancestors.
our sacred forebears from Urbana, from Champaign, Illinois. But it just comes down to I don't think emo should be a dirty word, and I'm trying very hard to like normalize. It's okay to call yourself an emo band. There's no shame in it. The worst thing is that you may not get best new music on Pitchfork. Pick people are still going to check you out. Most best new music is really fucking boring. For me at least, it's all subjective, I guess, but I don't really keep up with Pitchfork or anything like that. I only have now because it's starting to cover our scene a little bit more as the years have gone.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm just trying to take a lot of the negativity out of the word emo and trying to make it positive, and also pointing out very blatant, lazy music coverage from whether it's bigger people like Pitchfork or just small time podcasts. Every band that has yeah, seriously, like just because you have an acoustic guitar doesn't mean you're folk punk. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I think there's a lot of tropes and a lot of things that make something folk punk, and I don't think we do anything of that. I don't think we're even close to that. No diss on folk punk. I like some folk punk, but it's not us.
Personally, I think whatever genre the song "Celebrated Summer" by Husker Du is what you guys are. That's my take. I think you are like directly in that tradition, like that fusion of melodic introspective hardcore and like the folk melodies and like the warmth that comes from like the traditional like folk like chord progressions and playing style. That's it.
Yeah, when we were writing this record, I was really, really into the anthology of American folk music, the compilation curated by Harry Smith, another Beat Generation guy. Probably my favorite guy because he was just fucking bonkers. but I love the anthology a lot, and the sequencing on that album compilation would really influenced how I set up, because I have a fifth wave playlist on our Spotify, on our artist Spotify, that I really encourage people to check out, because it has a lot of underrated artists on there. Like, it doesn't have Origami Angel or Stars Hollow on there because everybody knows about them already, but it's got some names that are coming up, and then some people that I don't hear anybody talking about that I wish more people would. So like that playlist, you can shuffle it, but it's definitely like it's ordered, it's sequenced in a way where each song flows into each other, and I worked really hard on it actually.
Word.
And I really hope people E-word, and sorry, I'm so fucking stupid, but but I don't know. I think and then what was I talking about? Oh, and the old traditional folk style is what influences a lot of this record more so than like emo does, really, or punk in general. You know, like people like Mississippi John Hurt, or Henry Thomas, or Charlie Patton, or any of those, or the Carter Family, anybody on that compilation. You know, I love that entire thing. Like, there's not a song on there I don't think is amazing.
Well, like along with like people and journalists trying to like tack something onto you genre-wise, like, do you think there's any other sort of misconceptions that have been coming up about the record? Because I feel like lyric-wise it's not really obvious, and I see you on Twitter like pointing that out and kind of guiding people.
Well, I see people like calling me a man, and that's what annoys me the most.
For sure.
Because all you got to do is just click on the profile, and it's right there. It is right there in front of you, you know? And it's even on the fucking the liner notes that I added to what Ellie wrote. It was that this album is dedicated to what did I say exactly? Anybody and everybody who struggled with their gender identity. And that should be a major fucking hint, you know, without spelling it. I'm trans, you know, or I'm queer, you know. It's like it's an easier way to take in, I guess. I don't know. I thought so, at least. I guess I don't know. So that's something that's really annoying me, because the album is primarily, that is what it's about. It's about struggling with gender identity in post-capitalism. My entire late capitalism, excuse me. I wish we were fucking post-capitalism, but yeah, I don't know. That's something that really gets me, is that like people will say really incredibly nice shit about the record and about the band, and then they'll misgender me, and I'll be like, oh, dude, you were so close. You were so close. But I don't know. And then the front bottoms comparison too is really fucking annoying. And then I've gotten a ton
does
of
that
people
like
who have
keep
reached out to me
happening?
who, yeah,
I don't understand
fuck?
it whatsoever.
No, ever since I went on my little Twitter rant about it, which was again in half jest, because you know, I feel like to a certain degree also, like once you release art, like how people interpret it is kind of out of your hands. Like you can do your best to do damage control, but at the end of the day, whatever that person connects with is how they connect with it. And I kind of don't want to fuck with that either, because I'm sure there are like emo bands that I call emo that they would be like, we're not emo, we're fucking post-hardcore or something stupid like that.
Yeah,
or you know, I get it, but at the same time, like I feel like if you compare us to the front bottoms, no one's going to listen to it. And then you even tweeted that, like, yeah, I would not check out your record if it was compared and sounded like the front bottoms. Yes. So we've also gotten mom jeans, which I literally don't like. I don't understand at all. Like, I sincerely don't understand at all. No diss on mom jeans, but we just don't sound like y'all.
Because Brando, when you emailed me, you said, oh, some of our like more emo influences are I Hate Myself and Don Martin 3.
Don Martin 3, yeah.
Which, by the way, Transistor is like easily top 5 like old school emo songs ever written. But
without a doubt,
that like hooked me immediately, because I Hate Myself are pretty popular, but Don Martin 3 are like not a common name check anymore.
Yeah.
No, the only place I've ever seen them covered is that emos list, like that song list that was like on Rolling Stone or some shit. That was like, I was surprised to see one of their songs in that list. Yeah, that one, yeah.
Yeah,
that was kind of crazy to see.
I think that was Nina Corcoran who did the write-up on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
we recorded our first EP on the same street they recorded all of their songs on Anastasia Boulevard. So that was like, Florida emo and screamo and hardcore or whatever, just anything under that umbrella really means a whole lot to me, because it's really fucking good. Like, it's not just like home state pride or whatever. Like, it's like we churned out some of the coolest shit to ever hit the genre.
Like every time I listen, I hear like another thing where I'm like, that feels like a Florida band that you're taking influence from. Like when you do like the staccato screamo thing, I'm like, that sounds like Palatka. Like
Yeah,
immediately.
definitely. Yeah, we fucking love Palatka. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm super into like, you know, not sort of a prelude into what we're talking about later, but I'm really, really into second wave, like 90s shit. That's my bread and butter. Like anytime I like, I don't know, there's just something about that I connect with on like every single like level that it just means a lot to me. And so
Yeah.
like I'm trying, because I know that's kind of like an antiquated sound. Like I know some people are not into like the older shit like coming up now that are like really couldn't be fucked to check out shit from the 90s and God forbid the 80s. You know, but it's like that shit means a lot to me. Like Captain Jazz is literally like my favorite emo band. Like, and I try very hard to rip off Tim Kinsella whenever I can lyrically. I know he'd probably roll his eyes at our music, but like I love Tim. I love everything Tim does. I love Joan of Arc. I think The Gap is a horribly underrated record and underappreciated record. We just have a really big respect for the history of the genre, and especially in Florida as well, because it feels weird calling us Midwest emo, because none of us are from the Midwest, but you know, that's just kind of what happens, I guess, with time. But I don't know. We're really influenced by Florida shit. I've probably said that about 15 times now, so I'll get off it. But yeah, I would be maybe just like for the comparison thing. Maybe just people aren't as well researched. You know, maybe it's like people who are newer to DIY or like emo in general. Maybe they don't understand like the roots. I'm one of those people that like once I get into like a genre or an artist or something like that, like I gotta find out what influenced it. Like I gotta go way back, you know, and see what's up, you know, because I just want to understand where the music's coming from, and if I listen to that, maybe I can capture the same kind of magic I did by listening to that stuff. So it's so that's where I'm coming from. So to hear us compared to like a bunch of contemporary bands that literally mean next to nothing to us other than it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. But I also understand that people aren't mind readers and people aren't like academic about emo, you know.
Just to sort of follow up on that though, like I really have zero idea how anyone would like compare you to like a contemporary that's like a weedmo band or anything, but I think like I think that's really puzzling, especially because like how like whimsical and like I would say like surreal sounding, and like so much contemporary stuff is so just like devoid of anything that interesting sounding.
Chalky milk and Cheetos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing about contemporary bands is that I don't mean to sound like a wrong generation kid or nothing, but I'm fucking 25 years old, but it's the lyrics are a really big deal for me. Like that is like what makes or breaks really a record for me. And I haven't really heard too many lyricists in the scene right now or in the past couple years. Right now there's some really, really cool ones starting to pop out, but for a hot while, you know, there was just like a lot of songs about smoking a bowl, heartbroken, you know, like, and the amount of times I've heard the phrase sleepless nights is too much, is far too much.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something that we've called for on the podcast like several times. Is like, lyricists, step up your game, please. So this was definitely appreciated.
I appreciate that. I feel like because I don't play any real instruments. I play a saw and I play a harmonica by ear. Like I need Trace to tell me what key the song is in so I can play it correctly.
Really?
So what I focus on is the lyrics. Like I call the lyrics my instrument. You know, anybody in the band can write the music for a song. I need this to be my focus. You guys can do literally whatever you want. If you want to have a sample, if you want to sing it, you know, it's whatever. By all means, go ahead. But I need to write these because this is the only thing I can contribute to the band that will make it better. Not better, but I don't know, something I would feel confident in doing, you know?
Right. Was there a different mindset going into this album, going off of the EP, that one sounds like way more scrappy and like emo indebted as well? I guess like
totally.
contemporary. So like, was there like conversations within the band to be like, we need to level up and do something that's more like refined or more focused or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was like our number one goal. Like we wanted to, like I've told a few people like our mindset is like we wanted to approach this as if Fugazi did Pet Sounds. So we wanted it to have
Hell
like
yeah.
that like punk abrasive, like hard hitting um like quality to it, but also have like layers to it as well, and have things unfold and have walls of sound and have it be really like you said, like refined and like and well tuned and just and like it could be played on the radio or like because like for Our Mouths to Smile, like I love that record. I still think that's a really good record. I haven't listened to it in like a really long time, but we didn't play to a click track. Like that's how like we just went into it like just playing it. We wanted to make the first record was like definitely like we wanted to make like the end all be all like emo revival album, like where it has like you could hear like the walls, like the vocals reflecting off the walls.
Mm-hmm.
You could it could a little bit more lo-fi. We experiment with like horns and stuff like that, but like really we just wanted to make like a like just an unapologetically like emo album. And then for this record, I was going through a ton. Like there's a lot of stuff in these lyrics that I've been working on these lyrics since I was 17 years old. The Old Country was originally like I started writing that when I was around this time, right around spring, when I was 17 years old, and I've been working on it ever since then. Like the last line on the album, the very last line, the I have a whole lifetime to learn, that bit I wrote when I was 17, and I knew
Wow.
that I wanted that to be the last line on an album. And
Yeah.
I brought it to Trace with like 20 stanzas. Like it was long. It was ridiculously long song. And he just looked at me and he was like, dude, I love you, but I'm not doing this. Like, cause I don't, and I was like, I get it. So I gutted it to the best verses, the best lines, and I stitched them together. And then it became the shortest song on the album.
You keep bringing up also though that like I Became Birds is like definitely an LP, not an EP. And I think it's kind of frustrating that people keep trying to assert that it is an EP because, I mean, the Gatecreeper record that came out is 18 minutes long. No one says that's not an LP. And the Regional Justice Center LP is 13 minutes long. No one says that's not an LP.
Right.
But just because like you play nominally emo music, you can't have a 17-minute long LP, even though it like is just as full of like substance and purpose, and there is a reason like that each song is as long as it is. And yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. And then meanwhile, like Pig Destroyer has like an EP, Natasha, that is one song and is longer than like some of their full lengths.
Yeah, like I grew up on hardcore, and like so many studio albums, like quote unquote studio albums from hardcore bands, are like 10 minutes long. You know,
Yeah.
So I don't understand why we can't do that either. You know, and like our album is literally 1 second shorter than Joyce Maynard's album, and they even tweeted about it. Like our Knife Punch tweeted at them like, what do you think of this record? It's only 1 second shorter, what blah 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 blah, and they commented like, oh, that's pretty funny, I wish it was 1 second longer.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like it was one of those things where that was also really surreal to see, like, holy shit, Joyce Maynard, I don't know if they listened to us or anything like that, but they knew we existed for about 2 seconds, which is pretty cool. But it's just one of those things. Yeah, there's no like objective rule to this shit. So like I can understand if like a listener wants to call it a different genre or compare them to a different band, but if the artist is telling you, yo, this is literally an album, or this is a mixtape, or this is an EP, whatever, I don't think that's up for the listener to decide. I think that's like one of those things.
Yeah.
I was just saying there was this Facebook group that I was in that was trying like so desperately to say that the Gulch LP was an EP. The Gulch LP is longer than Group Sex by Circle Jerks, and no one doesn't call that a hardcore LP. Like it just is mind-boggling to me. it's all about artistic intent. EP and LP are like absolutely meaningless like signifiers, especially in the world of streaming. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's
like,
cool that you've like taken so much ownership of it, though.
Oh yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, why are we even having this conversation? Like we live in the streaming world, and it's like my favorite electronic artist is DJ Sprinkles, and DJ Sprinkles I forgot what moniker they used, but they have what is as far as we know right now the longest album of all time, where it's like it stretches on for like days and days and days.
Huh.
And the album is a lament for the death of the album. And it's like, because the only reason albums exist was because you could fit more songs on a 12-inch record back in the day and sell it for more than you could for like a single or anything. So that's what became the arbiter of what an album is that if you can fill up a vinyl record on both sides, what is that, like 40 minutes of music and change? That's an album.
Yeah.
And then you had Bob Dylan and Frank Zappa both dropped double albums the first two double albums ever in the year 1966, and that pretty much changed our entire idea of how long a record could be. And then CDs came out, and you had like even longer amounts of even longer albums coming out, and then digital stuff happened, like streaming happened, and now you have Drake released a studio playlist, I think, right? Wasn't one of his albums actually a playlist? Yeah. So I mean, it's all weird. I think, and I knew it wasn't an EP because these songs flow together. It's not to sound like an ass or anything, but it is kind of a concept record, and each song relies on the other song for context, and there are repeated motifs in every song. Like, I can point them out to you, like, this is that, do like Pepe Sylvia back here, like with like lines drawn and like chain smoking, like no. Because I think there's a lot of pressure on DIY for their first album to be super proper. It has to be X amount of time. It has to be cleaner. It has to be, you have to have like 4 singles off the record. You have to have, a bunch of different stuff with it. And I think that's all kind of BS, because these rules were made up literally just for commodity, just to make more money off of buying a physical disc. And then now, not so many people anymore buy the physical copies of anything, which is, fair, whatever. Spend your money how you want to. But we live in a really weird, almost formless time when it comes to like accessing music. I still download my music, because shit gets taken off Spotify or YouTube all the time. I remember where there was a long time where it was this pain in the ass to try to listen to Just Got Back from the Discomfort. And so we live in this weird time where just accessing music is finally like starting to feel like it's setting in on itself now. Like, people are starting to figure out what stuff is when it comes to Spotify or Apple Music and stuff, and I feel like with that we're still carrying all these old stigmas that like, an EP isn't as important as an LP for whatever reason, even though some of the greatest pieces of recorded music are EPs. And some of my favorite albums ever, like I'd call records, I guess, like I do every now and then. I have like a Topsters, I have like a top 100 or whatever, and I'd say like it's 50-50 albums, EPs, because I don't care. I enjoy it just as much as I do an album, and I'm not going to let the fact that it's like a 10-inch or 7-inch like deter me from that enjoyment.
I mean, there's even just in like the punk and adjacent sphere, which has made like some of the most sophisticated usage of the EP format ever. I mean, like the Downsided is an EP, or that might actually just be like a 7-inch single, but it's like so much music like compressed into such a tiny amount of space. Or NoFX is The Decline. There was another one that I had in my head that just like vanished, but I mean, there's literally a million examples. The Void Faith split.
I was gonna squeeze that in there. Like, that is both bands' best work. It's a masterpiece.
And if you think about it, like the Void Faith split, that's like that, like kind of. I can't think of like an earlier example of like a split record.
Yeah.
Like that kind of
Yeah.
like invented an entire way of getting your music out there that like the scene just would not even be like half the same without.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, there's some amazing splits have come out the last couple years though. Like the Shin Guard for Your Health split, I will go down saying is
That
the
one-
best split to come out in the scene since Jerome's Dream and Orchid. Like that split is mind-numbingly good.
That one is really good because I feel like both bands were on the same page about like how to approach it and everything.
Okay, not that I don't like the Jerome's Dream Orchid 10-inch skull split. Ooh. I mean, Hot Cross had a shit ton of great splits. And there's also
totally.
the Page 99 Circle Takes the Square split.
Oh my god, that is a really good one. I saw an original. I don't know why. Every time I always confuse Circle Takes the Square with City of Caterpillar because their album art's kind of similar. And I saw I saw the original City of Caterpillar LP in a store up here in New York for $85, and like my girlfriend had to talk me down from buying it because I was like, "Yo, this is really good, but really expensive," and she was like, "No." No, we're not getting that today.
That's
I'm
a
like, okay,
bit
one day.
overpriced for that, to be honest. It should be about $40 now.
Oh yeah, easily. But yeah, it's just one of those. I think splits are just as important too. Like I don't think there should be like favoritism towards like the format of the album, you know, unless it's like a greatest hits record, then who gives a shit, you know? But I don't know many people in DIY who release greatest hits records unless they're ironically calling an album greatest hits. So,
Who do you think will be the first emo band to do a greatest hits? I mean, Fall Out Boy do have one already, but
Oh, I mean, but
like of
you're
all
talking,
time, I was
like,
thinking like contemporary.
no.
I mean, yeah, Fall Out
Probably
Boy.
Jimmy
Like,
Eat World.
I would say probably Jimmy Eat World will do a greatest hits at some point.
if we're talking more like a little bit closer to our scene, the Wonder Years.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, I almost in my head I was like, you know, it was like you could censor it or whatever. I'm not sure. I've heard you do it a couple times on the show, but I was thinking like fucking Brand New. Didn't they just drop have a merch drop recently?
Yeah.
Clearly they don't give a shit, you know.
Yeah.
So why not? Ugh. Somebody compared us to them, and I was pissed. I was
What the
fucking pissed. Yeah, they said the opening part for Sewn Together from the Membrane of the Great Sea Cucumber reminded them of one of their records. I never really got into Brand. I always thought that shit was terrible.
You guys are not the Florida band to compare to Brand New.
I know.
The Florida band to compare to Brand New, and they even like when I talked about it in my records you slept on 2020. They even were like, I can't believe that you are the first person who was brave enough to make this comparison in public. But Guilt is the band that sounds.
Ellie, I've basically, because Manchester are on an album cycle, I thought that we should do like at least a segment talking about that circle of like Kevin Devine, Manchester bad books, because that's something that I don't think we've ever talked about.
Yeah, it's weird because my roommate, the person I lived with like the entire time season 1 of the E-Word was happening, like literally obsessed with Manchester Orchestra and Kev Dev and bad books. Sorry for the burps. It's all that caffeinated sparkling water. He would like make me listen to it, and I would, maybe it's because he wanted me to like it so bad, but I just like couldn't, you know?
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I think Kevin Devine is easily the best songwriter out of that whole circle. And seems like the coolest person. He always comes off like very funny and self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've never listened to Right Away Great Captain, but apparently that shit is amazing. That's and
I've also heard good things about it too. Yeah.
I knew a few people in high school that were really obsessed with that. That's Andy Hull, right?
Yeah.
He does that. Yeah. There's some good songs in there. I never really got into that scene in particular.
You know, now that we brought up like Splits and the Smiths, I just like also kind of wanted to sidestep and talk about what happened to like stellar B-sides. Like, because this used to be a thing, especially like in England, I think, with bands like the Buzzcocks and then later on like the Smiths. Like
Oasis too, though.
Yeah, and like it was like a generational English thing. You'd put out fucking kick-ass B-sides, Like I think the only Arctic Monkey song that I even give a shit about is a B-side. But like to get people to buy the single, like because
Yeah.
otherwise you can just get the song on the record. And that's just like not a thing anymore at
Yeah.
all. I think
I
that's
don't-
because of streaming again, but I don't know. I kind of miss that. I kind of miss like finding like even like a CD of like
The
B-side
import
compilations.
shit, yeah.
Yeah, like REM's Dead Letter Office, or like the cassette version of Standing by the Sea by The Cure. Like you'd find a whole bunch of like super high quality material that you could not get on an album because
No, yeah, they even were doing that in the '60s because I'm really, really into Barrett era Pink Floyd, and the first three
Oh, yeah.
singles are back. A side and B side are amazing. I think some of my favorites are the B side actually, like Apples and Oranges or something like that. Like I love music a lot, and there's just something about like what was going on in England in the '60s. Even if like some bands only released one single, but that single front and back, the B side too, is absolutely amazing. Like sometimes it feels like an album. Not to like, I'm not even trying to be like a smartass here, but sometimes they just take you on a trip.
it feels like
you know?
very coherent. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
like there's some bands now when they drop a single, like we didn't drop a B-side for our single, but we only have 6 songs on our album, so that's like a quarter of the record released. So that was like a conscious decision for us. But there are bands that are releasing like 12 songs on a record or something crazy and crazy, like proper, but that just, I don't know, that could benefit by maybe having not releasing multiple singles in like a week period to build hype, but just release these 2 tracks together as an A-side and B-side and just let me vibe with that for a little bit. Like this band Blue Deputy that's on Chillwavve, who I love, I think they're amazing, have only one single out right now. They're 2 songs, but they're really good. And I keep returning to them, which I don't think I would return to it nearly as much if I didn't have another song to look forward to.
I also think like singles and EPs are easier to like go back and re-listen to than like a slog length album sometimes. I don't know, I do think non-album singles are starting to mount a comeback, especially in hip hop. Like just like some I think like a lot of people in hip hop are just like abandoning the idea of albums altogether, which is that is a little bit of a bummer because even like mixtapes I like really enjoy like the coherent feeling of just like sitting down and having an experience, but I get it, you know.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to both sides.
I think like the major label thing to do now is to not have B-sides and just release your scrapped tracks as like a 1-year anniversary deluxe edition. Like,
oh yeah, especially if you're dead and can't do anything about it.
yeah, that's I'm sick of that. But yeah, I think one thing that I've like the closest thing to the B-side for emo, I think, is like I think of an
The
example.
compilation track.
Yeah, that's what I immediately thought of, like the Braid compilations.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
Forever Dog
Niagara is my favorite Braid song. And of course it's written by Tim Kinsella, so that's probably why, but I fucking love Niagara.
Yeah. All right, we are way off course here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's all of us. But yeah, kind of where we did leave off was sort of like what is like the history of the band. Like I know that y'all have like a demo that goes back to 2017. And I was wondering if you guys have just been like active that whole time.
Sort of. I was in a band right out of high school that didn't have a name. We didn't play any shows. We had like a few concrete songs, but we kept shifting into like black metal or post rock or like really blown out I'm hesitant to use this word, but like post emo, but not in a sense that like how Glass Beach might be seen as post emo, but like how people call anything with reverb on it post. So we were kind of in there, and that was really rough because I'm still friends with the drummer to this day, but our guitarist was a manipulator of sorts. So after that kind of ended, we had a few like iPhone recordings that I threw up on Bandcamp just to have just to have it because I was clearing out my computer, running out of room and stuff. So I was like, oh, I got to put this somewhere, and I don't want to delete it forever. And then after that, I stuck to like in my room making beats for a while just to like pass the time. I was bored, and me and the boys in Home Is Where have been friends since high school. Me and Connor are the same age, but I'm about 2 years older than Joe or Trace. So around 2016, I asked Joe if he wanted to be in a band because him and Trace are in a band called The Ned, and they're really fun, like kind of like super NoFX inspired, kind of like slacker punk kind of thing. It's cool. It's if you're in the mood for it, I'd highly recommend. If you just want to have you ever seen the movie Freaked with the dude from Bill and Ted in it that isn't Keanu Reeves?
No.
Alex Winter?
Highly. It's got like Alex Winter vibes, like if you're into that like aesthetic, because he did some crazy shit back in the 90s for like MTV and stuff. But Joe was open to side projects because Joe did like harsh noise. Joe did some crazy stuff when he was by himself. So I was desperate to be in a band. I had the songs for Our Mouths to Smile somewhat written. I was in the middle of writing it. And we went through a few people to jam with, and nobody really clicked. And then Trace came into Joe's garage one day and jammed with us and had a lot of fun. We all felt something really, really cool in the room. And we played our first show with no written material at all. We did not have a bassist. Connor was in the crowd. I believe he was like either very drunk or on something. I have no idea what. But we were like, yo, you play bass. Do you want to play bass with us? And he joined in. We all had like a really, really good time. And we did the exact same thing again, where we played another live show with no written material, kind of filled in for a band that couldn't show up. And Connor was also there, again, very drunk. And we asked him if he wanted to play bass again. And then after that show, we like all met up like a few weeks later because I had to go do something. I wasn't available, and I went to Kenya, which was a really interesting time. And when I came back, we decided to be in a band, and that we're gonna focus on writing an EP. And if this is it, this is it. Because it's an emo band, so you have no idea how long this shit's gonna last for. And me and Trace wrote the record together in his room on an acoustic guitar after we played 2 games of chess and drank a Coke. Like, that was our routine. We would play 2 games of chess to open up our brains a little bit, to think critically. And then I would lose every time. Trace is a genius. We'd chug a Coke, and then we'd get writing. And it took us about a year to write all the songs for Our Mouths to Smile together. And once we were done with writing them, we brought them to the boys, and then we fleshed them out from there. And we uploaded the iPhone demo, the Alabama Henry, I think it was. Yeah, it has to be Henry, a song that never got released officially. We put that on there for our buddies to listen to, like, hey, check us out, we're in a band now. And then we played a ton of shows, tons and tons and tons of shows in the Northeast Florida circuit, like from like Jacksonville down to like Daytona. Made some really cool friends, and played a lot in St. Augustine, mostly at a place called Sarbez. And that's where we met the producer for Our Mouths to Smile, Cole. About a year to record because we had no idea what we were doing. And it doesn't help that, like, I'm in there, like, I want it to sound fluffier. I want it to sound like blueberries, and he has no idea what I'm talking about. Like, so, because I don't know music theory, so I can't tell him, like, oh, yeah, I want this is in whatever, talk. I don't know that language at all, so I just know, like, a feeling, or I would, like, show him a track. Like, I showed him Boy's Life a lot, like, the Departures and Landfall album. Like, Buried, I wanted you to hear the room. I wanted, like, little samples to add, like, to an atmosphere, like, of, like, cicadas or, like, train tracks or, like, railroads and, like, just, like, little stuff. And then we did a tour with no released material, which was really fun, but also very stressful because we played to a couple empty rooms. But then we also got to play with some really cool bands like Sauce, which was really fun to play with. And they're like a rock instrumental band. Mm-hmm. And we actually won a battle of the bands in Georgia. We did not know we entered. We just thought it was a regular bar show, and then like halfway through, once we saw people were eliminated, we were like, oh shit, this is a competition. And so we are like, our tour manager, who's literally just like our buddy, went up to like the people running it, and they're like, this is a competition? And they're like, yeah, winner gets like $150. And and on our YouTube, there's like a professional recording of it. Like it's like you actually have camera angles, the audio is good. So when you win, you get that for free. So you get both, you get the audio and the visual for free. Whereas like if you lost, you would have to pay. Like if you came in second place, I think you had to pay like $50, and then if you wanted your recording, if you came in anything other than second place, you had to pay like pretty decent money for it. So we won, and we were the only punk band. We were playing against dad rock, bluesgrass bands, and literal like pop bands, like people that are like, please let me do a song with the dude from Maroon 5. Like it was like very, very hungry kind of people who were not interested. Like people were pissed because I can't sing for shit. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, like missing notes on my broken harmonica. That harmonicas break very easily because I blow pretty hard, and we won. We were like astounded that we won this competition, and we came back, and that was like a really big like thing for us because it was like, oh cool, like even like people outside of our little scene think we're kind of cool. And once the record came out, like a few months later, Sophie's Floorboard picked it up, and that's what really kind of hiked us into people who like emo's zeitgeist, I guess. I don't know what the fuck to call it. It sounds really pretentious just calling it the zeitgeist. But you know, if you like wimpy people screaming about bullcrap, you probably have heard of us from Sophie's Floorboard, and that was really nice. And then, like I said earlier, once the single dropped and Ian Cohen picked it up, it's been kind of really crazy since then. Like it's really surreal. Like like I'll like stop in my tracks one day, like some days, and like just start manic laughing because I'm like, haha, I'm doing the thing I wanted to do. And yeah, so I'm really grateful and really proud. So Home Is Where started as like, to make the long story I already told short, we started out as a band just for our buddies in garage sing this with us while we were playing live, and I was throwing myself against the walls, and it just kind of stretched out a lot further than we ever even imagined.
Just a few things that I think I'd want to squeeze in before we get into like the wave. The proper like headquarters for your band is Palm Coast. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. Okay. We are all from Palm Coast, Florida.
Gotcha.
Connor was born in Jersey, but moved down here relatively early. But gotcha. I was born in Jacksonville, and then they carried my ass to Palm Coast.
And so I had to like Google to see if that was like any place like close to like where we sort of know like where like touring bands would play, but like is Palm Coast like
nope.
That's not. So then I noticed that you were like a half hour to like an hour away from like a bunch of those places like Gainesville or like Daytona.
Yeah,
or not Daytona.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right, Daytona.
Okay, yeah. So like
NASCAR city.
You would obviously have to like travel to like play shows.
Yeah, we played like Joe's garage when his mom was away. We would throw house shows there, and she was cool with it. She was actually super supportive of band stuff, like his whole family was. Shout out to the Gardellas, I love y'all. But yeah, so we would throw house shows, and that would be it for Palm Coast. Like Palm Coast originally started in like the late 70s, early 80s as a retirement community, and then once like younger Gen Xers started moving there and having kids started growing up there. I was born in 95, so I've literally lived in Palm Coast my entire life. Me moving later this summer will be the first time I've not lived in Florida.
Wow.
But also did not have like a mainstay in Palm Coast, because there was a short period of time when I was going to barber school that I was like crashing at my grandparents' house in South Daytona. But I would always, on the weekends, I would always end up staying at like my dad's house or my mom's like apartment at in Palm Coast. So it wasn't like I was totally disconnected from Palm Coast at all. So I'm like a hometown kind of person. It's a weird place. A lot of kids turn to drugs and doing shit they shouldn't be doing because it is so boring. Like, they literally do not want you living there after you graduate high school. Like, they go out of your way to make you feel unwelcome. It's you know, I got a lot of good memories there. I have literally most of my memories there, but it was, you know, it's a place where you can easily lose your mind because you're bored, you know, and then you end up doing stupid shit like just doing crime, literally not because your material conditions demand you do crime, but just because you're bored. Literally just because you have nothing else to do. And it's
I mean, that's also a material condition, to be fair.
True. Very true. Very true. But yeah, I've lost a good couple friends because of how they decided to deal with the boredom.
Yeah.
And it's rough.
I listened to an interview with the bassist who was in Down to Nothing and was in TUI because he's from Florida, and he said that like Florida was appreciated in like the early 2000s because so many bands would like travel across the country and just do like a Florida tour and make ton of money.
Yeah, because
get
Florida
their
never
name
to get through.
Yeah, and like their name would just be so easily like circulated around the scene that everyone kind of gave them a huge boost just within Florida and stuff.
One of my favorite Florida hardcore bands that no one talks about anymore, even though they were fucking stellar, is Blistered.
I've only seen that name on T-shirts, but I've never listened to them.
I don't think I've checked out Blistered.
They have like a really high-pitched vocalist, which is like one of my favorite things in hardcore. But this guy's like so high-pitched it almost sounds like a banshee wail.
Oh jeez.
It's still like recognizably not metal, but like a really like abrasive kind of sound, and then like just fucking the heaviest version of Slayer riffs. They had one album that came out in 2011, I think, if I can find it. I remember it specifically because like Bandcamp did like a write-up on them, and I was like, that's fucking crazy that Bandcamp like is writing about like metallic hardcore that's happening right now, because this was like before Bandcamp was known for doing stuff on like niche subgenres.
Right. Yeah. So I guess generally, like, what does the future for the band look like? Like, I mean, post-COVID, are you trying to like take it on the road and take it more seriously and whatnot?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to. So many cool people, like so many people I look up to and have like massive respect for, have reached out and be like, "Yo, let's play a show together once the world stops ending for a second." And that's our number one goal. You know, I have like a ton of songs written that are like lyrically that are ready to get worked on, that I'm really excited about. But yeah, our main goal right now is to just like keep hype up for the record, because Kyle, how long do you think it'll be until this comes out?
Probably next week.
Next week. Okay. Well, you know, it would be really cool, because I always thought it was really cool when you like bleeped out like bands talking about cool shit on the pod.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have vinyl coming out very soon.
Hell yeah.
The first run will be with one of our buddy labels, and then the second run, and this is probably the most important, that we're talking with about putting out I Became Birds on vinyl for the second run, which I am so fucking excited for.
Nice.
Like in high school, where I was definitely like a wrong generation kid, where I was like, punk isn't the same after the 80s, man, you know, or you know, like really annoying. And then I discovered shit, and like oh my god, this is really fucking cool. I also I'm forming a super group of sorts with, which I'm very excited to start working on. We're going to be an internet band. I'm very excited for that. That shit's going to be amazing. And then there's something. Oh, you can keep this part in, is that we're working on a remix album for I Became Birds. We're working on so it's gonna be cool. We're gonna do like hyper pop remixes of the album, and I'm super fucking excited for it. We're in contact now with a few artists, with a few producers that are really interested in working on it. And I'm really excited to see how it turns out. I have all the stems. I just got to send them when I get back home to Florida. That's going to be so fucking cool. I am so excited to hear that shit. Yeah, I want to like, cause I like electronic music, and like even though I don't club or do like that kind of scene at all, like I hear songs in a different context instead of just me. It'll be cool to be able to dance to it.
Well, I think we should wrap up the home is where portion to talk a little bit about Bob Dylan. I'm curious what you would recommend for Bob Dylan for someone who's looking to take a bigger dive after hearing
now this is my
about
fucking
like the
specialty,
obvious
dude.
ones. Yeah, because like I've heard people are like check
ready.
out Desire and like the
Fuck
Born
no.
Again Dylan shit.
Do not start off with Desire. Desire is a 10 out of 10 record.
Wait, Kyle,
Undeniably good, but if
Where did you start, Kyle?
Where did I start with Bob Dylan?
Yeah.
With like the
where did you
obvious
start?
ones. With like
Blonde on Blonde,
basically
Highway 61.
Yeah, but also like
Blood
buying
on the
that
Tracks.
with
Blood
like
on
the
the Tracks
essential
is great.
Bob Dylan greatest hits
Okay.
thing, the one that like
That's a
every
good
Best
one.
Buy had, which is honestly is like suited me perfectly well. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about like after hearing Highway 61, after hearing Blonde on Blonde, like where should someone go in for like a bigger dive?
I actually
Finish the
don't
trilogy
think
and listen to Bringing It
people
All Back
should
Home.
start. Yeah, I think people should start with Bringing It All Back Home because it's half electric, half acoustic. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend going into Highway 61 Revisited is literally my all-time favorite album ever.
Yeah.
Like if I had to listen to
Yeah.
one record, it'd be that
Okay.
one. But I wouldn't say that should be your first intro because there are many different facets to Dylan's work. And I think if you want to get he's most famous for his 60s work, and his 60s shit is my favorite shit too. So that's what I'm always going to recommend first. So if you're brand new to Bob Dylan, you've never heard any song, maybe you heard like the singles, like Knocking on Heaven's Door or some shit like that. I would go into Bringing It All Back Home because it's half acoustic, half electric. It's also the first folk rock album ever made, which is pretty fucking sick. And I guess you could argue the Fugs made the first folk rock album, but I don't really hear much rock in their music, if I'm being honest. But the Fugs are really fucking tight too. But yeah, so if you like the electric shit, like if you like the more far out like lyricism, I would definitely, after Bringing It All Back Home, go into Highway 61 and Blonde on Blonde. And then if you liked the more folksier aspects of it, if you liked the acoustic cuts, you go back to Freewheelin', Another Side, The Times They Are Changin'. And then always listen to the 60s shit first. And then if you're somebody who can't stand his voice, like if you're like, these lyrics are really cool, I like how comfy and cozy the instruments are, I'm going to National Skyline or John Wesley Harding. John Wesley Harding has some of his best lyrics on it and some of like really, really good acoustic tone. There's just something about how Bob Johnston produced that record compared to earlier folk stuff that just really hits home for me. Like really, really, I think if Dylan said himself that if he released John Wesley Harding first before Bringing It All Back Home, that people probably wouldn't be as up in arms as when he went electric. I almost said like electronica from that fucking Hard Times article. But yeah, I think, I don't know. And then I would just listen to the 60s stuff first, again, like Dylan, as long as like, I even like his contemporary shit. Like I like the 90s stuff. I like everything. I even like the Christian stuff. The Christian stuff is really underrated, honestly, in my opinion. The production is kind of whack, but it was, yeah. So I don't know. Just hit me up. Literally, just hit me up. If you're interested about Bob Dylan, hit me up. I can talk for hours.
I will say, I think it's important to listen to Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61, and Blonde on Blonde in a row because they are kind of viewed like contextually as like a trilogy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like there's literally like Bob Dylan like classes in college where those three albums are like looked at as like one cohesive unit. My personal favorite Bob Dylan record is Blood on the Tracks. And I think that it's most easily comparable to honestly, it sounds like what Neil Young would do like with Ragged Glory like in 1990. It's like which means it's like 18 years ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Have you listened to the bootleg series, like the OG cuts before the studio album came out, Ellie?
No, I have not.
There's I think if you listen to Blood on the Tracks, like if you're new to Dylan, you should definitely go in with some context for Blood on the Tracks because it's a really different Dylan album. Like it's probably the most standout Bob Dylan album. I guess some people would argue Desire, but like there really isn't too much context for Desire. It's just like Dylan was just interested in different world music at the time. But Blood on the Tracks like started out as like it is the quintessential breakup album, and Dylan was about to go through his first divorce around that time to Sarah Lowen's. The original, I've always heard it rumored, like the New York sessions for Blood on the Tracks were like supposed to be these like heart-wrenching, like ultra depressing like songs that like when Dylan brought it to the producer and started recording it, the producer or somebody in the room was just like, yo, this is like suicidally like upsetting. Like this is like a really rough album to make. And so Dylan decided to layer it a little bit more with like the traditional, not with the instruments that he'd been known to work with, like organ and like electric bass and like a bunch of other different stuff, just to make it like less depressing. But a couple years ago, they put out the bootleg series for every single studio take Dylan did for recording Blood on the Tracks, and hearing like the first 2 discs where it's just him in a room. Like literally, it sounds like he's like trying not to cry, singing these songs. I like the bootleg series one a little way more now than the actual studio release of On the Tracks because it's just so raw and like real and unpolished, and what other music journalist buzzwords I can put on there to describe like a really emotional fucking trip. Like it's hard to listen to, especially if you're going through a rough time. Yeah, fucking wuss. It's wussy music, but it's good. Yeah, it's so fucking good. I'm Not There is the best biopic ever made, and I'm pissed that they're making another Bob Dylan biopic. Because it's literally just going to play out like the movie Ray or Walk the Line, where it's just like this very Hollywood idea of what quote-unquote rock star is. Whereas I'm Not There is like, Dylan said himself that's like the most accurate representation of his life he's ever seen. Yeah. Whether it was like a biography or even like the D.A. Pennebaker documentaries, like he didn't really identify with those two too much, but there was something about I'm Not There where he said that resonated with him as well. So that's something really, really cool. And Cate Blanchett fucking knocks it out of the park in that movie.
Oh my god, she's so fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the real hint, the thing that like pushed it over the top to be perfect, is David Cross as Allen Ginsberg. That's like the best casting of all time.
And then he played Allen Ginsberg's dad in the movie Daniel Radcliffe starred in about the Lucian murder. Oh fuck, what was his name? Lucian Carr murder.
Lucian Carr, which is like like half of all Beat like books are like written in response to. Like the Kerouac Burroughs like collaboration book, I think, is like written up exactly about that.
Yeah, elephants, something water, not water. But
it's
I know
hippo.
exactly
It's like something hippo.
Yeah, I'm mixing up my my African animals, but it's kind of crazy how this pod kind of came full circle back to the beats just right into here.
And the hippos were boiled in their tanks.
There it is. Yeah, David Cross is awesome. I like, and he does eerily look like Allen Ginsberg. Like it is kind of strange.
All right. So
are there any other emo bands that have used harmonica before?
Oh yeah,
can anyone think of that?
Even Captain Chaz has a harmonicas on Mom, Do I Have to Choke on These? Hey Ma, Do I Have to Choke on These? I think Mike sings that song up until the last line. And I've heard emo before. I've heard harmonica in a couple emo tracks here and there. I think I can't think of I don't know if they use harmonica, like, but Young Jesus gives me a really big maybe. I know melodica is a pretty popular instrument right now because of melodic like a bunch of Abacus core bands are using melodica, like Rookie Card and You're on the Mic Cocoon are pretty big on that. But yeah, I can actually, you know what? I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna listen to all like 2,000 emo albums in my archive, and I'm gonna single out all the ones with harmonica, and I'm gonna make a.
That should definitely be a Spotify playlist of emo harmonica.
Definitely. I think it's kind of crazy how we introduced harmonica to a lot of DIY kids. Like I've gotten hit up with like, what is that instrument? Is that a kazoo? And I'm like, it's a harmonica. And
fucking God.
And it's that's like one of those things where it's like, okay, you're not that interested in other stuff maybe, which is cool. Do your own thing.
When I think of kazoo and music, I think of "Smells Like Nirvana" by Weird Al, where he does like the solo and then like gargles the water.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
We're officially pivoting into our discussion of the waves of emo.
All right.
And let's get focused up for this
Play-Doh
one
snakes.
if we can.
Okay.
So I want to start off with, why does everyone all of a sudden concern themselves with the waves of emo? Like why is this such like a thing that people are trying to talk about on Twitter and like codify and everything like that?
I think it's single-handedly home is where, like with the fifth wave emo memes.
Yeah.
You think so?
I thought about this for a while. For me, it felt when we made Our Mouths to Smile, like we went in to that trying to make the end-all be-all emo revival album, but it occurred to me because I literally have way too much time on my hands to think about this shit, where it's like, how long can you call something a revival? You know what I mean? Until it's like revived.
Yeah.
Like you don't like when you're trying to revive someone with chest compressions, once they're alive or awake, you don't keep fucking giving them CPR. You let them breathe and then you help them out or do whatever. So it's like the emo revival was around for like 10 years. I consider American football releasing their comeback album as like the end of it, because the band that everybody was either at least inspired by, if not actively trying to rip off, came back literally as a response to how popular that sound became. So it's like, okay, sorry, I had to hawk a loogie real quick. But like, okay, so the emo is revived. People are talking about emo. It's getting covered here and there. It was definitely a lot spottier a couple years ago, but it was still like people were talking about it. Shit, like YouTube playlists were getting mad hits if you had the corniest fucking title for it. And you had like a picture of like a train coming by in some Midwest town or whatever, get like 1 million likes or 1 million views or something. So like people became interested in it, and then people also were starting to go back to the past, and like that's where you get shit like the Emo Encyclopedia on Instagram, and Real Emo only consists of, who also I think are contributing to the fifth wave discussion a lot. I think they started before we did, because they also have a fifth wave playlist that got really, really fucking popular a couple months ago, that like a bunch of people were talking about how cool Jesse's playlist was. And shout out to that page. That page has helped us out quite a bit as well by exposing us to a lot of people. And so after the emo revival, you had that weird period where it was like weed emo and like frat emo and literally like the dark ages for me. Like I fucking hated it. I could not stand this shit that was coming out. It was painful. And everybody in the band wanted to do like the exact opposite of what they were doing, sonically and lyrically. We just did not fuck with it at all. We thought this was like the end. Like this is where it's like, okay, well now we're just gonna go into nostalgia mode until whatever cool gets propped up next. But like right around 2017, a bunch of bands were doing, not a bunch, but a handful of bands were doing some really progressive shit where it was like moving the genre forward and making me reevaluate what contextually is and isn't emo. The shit. Bands like Pool Kids, like Awake But Still in Bed. Even Hekra, I would call Hekra proto fifth wave.
Yes.
Yes. So there were these bands that were like capturing something really fucking special and really cool, but it like it just felt like a disservice to call it another branch of the emo revival, because like I said, it's around, it's here, it seems like it's here to stay. Weed emo was scary. It seemed like it was going to ruin it for everybody. So like, and then you have like, and it's easy to differentiate too, because you have first wave, second wave, and third wave, all of which sound nothing like each other. And I think the confusion here is that a lot of people, most of the people who deny fifth wave emo are still listening to shit like Modern Baseball and calling that like a new record, like, oh, the new Modern Baseball record. And what was that, like 2015 their last record came out or something like that, or
2016?
Yeah,
you know,
or 2016.
yeah, a handful of years. So it's like, and then all these bands are coming up and they're all stepping away from the twinkle sound that was established in the revival. They're incorporating influences from other shit like bedroom pop, even like directly like doing like screamo, but having it be melodic and having a lot more clean vocals than it would be to just call it like a straight up screamo band. You have people that are focusing a lot more on lyricism, that are more influenced by jazz directly instead of just tapping and pretending they're jazz. And there's just a lot more influences were coming in, and a lot more people decided to incorporate that in their sound and do something like a lot wacky, I guess, maybe. And there's like tons of bands that are pushing it forward. Like I think the end all, not the end all be all, but like the main band for fifth wave for me personally right now is Your Arms Are My Cocoon. I think that sound is going to be something like that's going to be looked at as like a checkpoint in emo history, where it's like, this is where shit changed. Like, because I talk with Tyler on a daily basis. Me and them are buddies, and they tell me all the time about how people hit them up and they're like, I'm going to start a band just like yours, and this was so cool and this affected me so much. And I don't know, I think we're seeing, like, I'm calling it now because, you know, I can see it in like a few, in maybe like 10 years, Pitchfork will come out with like something that's like, whatever happened to fifth wave emo, and where did it go now? What are they up to now, kind of things. And there's just a ton of bands that are emo bands, undeniably emo bands, that are either consciously or subconsciously pushing the genre forward for the first time ever. Because I like, for the first time probably since the 90s, because as much as I love a ton of emo revival bands and albums, it really was just like a celebration of a corpse. It was like, we like these sounds that happened in the 90s and the early 2000s, and we're gonna twist them ever so slightly for a contemporary audience, and that's that. It did not really build upon the genre or the sound really in any way, and it just enforced old tropes a lot harder, which honestly I think led to a lot more mediocre bands coming out, you know, and a lot more lackluster albums from even good bands too, because, you know, you hit a certain point where it's like, well, we're masquerading these bones for, you can only masquerade these bones for so long until it becomes boring again. And now with fifth wave, I feel like people are actually like consciously trying or subconsciously trying to push forward the idea of what emo is. Like, I don't think like a band like Glass Beach could exist in the 90s. I don't think that even something simple like Dogleg would go over too well in like the early 2000s, because it's just like for like Dogleg, it's like the power behind it was like, it's like unlike anything that was coming out at the time within like emo pop or alt rock or whatever the fuck you want to call it. So I think, I don't know, am I making sense? I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, and I'm trying very hard to stay on track.
I think that one thing I think that we need to clarify is like what counts as a wave. Like, I mean, they kind of have to do
have
genre,
a little bit,
but not exactly.
Yeah, they have a little bit to do with sound. We're gonna get to it in a second, but like the way that I like kind of constructed my view of the waves was more about, and there's like definitely like still like some overlap at the edges. It was
totally.
more about, shifts in audience and like who was listening at the time. And in the middle section there, you definitely have like literally two completely different sides of the coin and the audience. When it comes to like the MTV emo era and like the emo diaries era were kind of happening simultaneously for a while.
Yeah, without a doubt. And yeah, definitely a new audience too, because what I've noticed about emo is that there was not a lot of diversity in emo up until Fifth Wave, where it was mostly cis white dudes from either like the burbs right outside some kind of major city or just from some major city doing it. And now you have tons and tons of black artists, of artists that just aren't white at all in general, like even like with the Southeast Asian boom with like bands like Forests and Subsonic Eye, and then you have a lot more trans artists involved now too, and a lot more just women in general as well, that aren't just like the bassist, or like aren't just like like a backup singer or anything like that. Like it's women writing songs, it's a lot more diverse, and I would be hesitant to use the word inclusive, but it's definitely, you get a lot more perspectives than you have for the last since like 84, 85, since Rites of Spring came out, so I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
A part of what you're saying can be condensed as like Fifth Wave is sort of a response to emo revival, or what you might consider like the fourth wave. It's trying to like separate itself from that, which I think is like really interesting.
But yeah, I think the context of the revival definitely informed Fifth Wave without a doubt. Like I don't think these sounds would be happening if not for how long the revival went on and how hard the revival beat the dead horse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because after a certain point, every band, every band not sounded the same, but they were all pulling from the same influences and had the exact same goals as, like even like the revival bands were like replacements for other bands. Like Algernon was a replacement for Captain Jazz. Empire was a replacement for Mineral. The World was a replacement for the Appleseed Cast. There's all these bands that literally replaced these other bands, and then now you have bands that are doing something totally unique and almost incomparable, which is why I understand some people's hesitation to say Fifth Wave emo is a thing. But it's like, if you understand if you understand the historical dialectics of emo, you'll see that Fifth Wave is here, and it's going to be here for a while.
Yeah, and like I think like a lot of people automatically think Fifth Wave emo means post emo, which is like
yeah, especially since like Brave Little Abacus like kind of arguably like invented like what we think of as post emo. I know Keegan was saying something like, I think it's so great that we're saying Fifth Wave instead of post emo, when really the fact is that they kind of refer to like two different sources.
Completely different. Yeah.
I do feel like post emo is a thing, but it's a branch of Fifth Wave. I'm working on a little, I don't know what you would call it, but I'm working on something that is breaking down what exactly is going on in Fifth Wave right now. And so as I see it, there are like 6 or 7 different branches of Fifth Wave happening, where you have, like you mentioned earlier, post emo, which is shit like Glass Beach, that are like just these big, grand, like gigantic sonic escapes or whatever, like sonic just fucking assaults of these walls of sound and these weird influences and stuff. And then you have like singer-songwriter emo, Fifth Wave, like us, I would call Awake but Still in Bed, that in that branch as well, where it's like heavy focus on like lyricism and like maybe influenced by like folk music or folk rock or like indie rock or whatever, or a little bit. You have like emo pop, because First Wave did not have pop at all. It was just melodic hardcore. So you have like Oso Oso, Origami Angel. You have like Twinkle Core is what I call it, like Guitar Fight from Fooly Cooly, Guac. I would even put maybe Pool Kids in there, even though like a little bit more jazzier. But it's like taking the Twinkle sound, but just like turning it up to 11. You have the lo-fi bedroom emo, like Your Arms Are My Cocoon, or Lights Strung Like Stars, or Rookie Card, or Hey I Love You, or and then let me see if I'm missing any, because I actually have it in my notes right here, because I'm that much of a dork. Power emo is what I'm calling it, which is just like more aggressive, like emo pop, like Dogleg, or like a band like Spielberg's, or
Okay, yeah.
yeah, and that, I think that's pretty much it. I think I covered the grounds. There's like 6 different scenes happening within the wave that are all, and we're all like friendly to each other. Like I've talked with a lot of the bands I just listed, and I would feel comfortable playing a show with them. Like I wouldn't feel like any of us would be out of place playing with each other, and this is strictly just like emo as emo. Like I'm not talking about screamo or emo violence or anything like that.
Right.
I don't know if they really ever had waves. I think screamo's always been kind of good, or always been fairly consistent. Like it's just kind of built with time, whereas like all these waves, like first wave and second wave emo, sound almost nothing like each other, and you throw third wave in there and you're like, what the fuck is this? How the hell does this fit with Embrace or Indian Summer? How the fuck does My Chemical Romance fit into that at all? As good as they are, I don't know. But and then you have the Revival, which is fourth wave, and we with the birth being the Algernon demo, I guess, technically. And then I think I would say fifth wave started in about 20, when you have a few albums came out in 2017 that would definitely be a precursor to fifth wave.
Do either of you know what like people? Because I saw this like last year where like people tried to call something Zoomer emo, and I think that's what they were trying to say. Like that's what like Guitar Fight was.
Yeah, someone was asking Wendy's like, or like some fucking corporate ass account, who's your favorite Zoomer emo band? And they were the corporate account responded Blue Deputy, and people were like going fucking nuts about that, even though like I'm sure the person running the account just like Googled Zoomer emo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the word twinklecore a little better for Guitar Fight. I think it's funny. I just think it's a funny name. But like I also think it's pretty apt, because like it lets you know that you're going into something that's a little bit more mathier than the other branches of fifth wave, while also like letting you know that it's not just some dude and his whinging about his girlfriend.
Yeah.
I think this is cool because we're gonna get into like what I think the waves are, and I think I have enough differing opinions on this to like make it interesting.
Yeah, I totally think that like the amount of time that we've been quote unquote the emo revival, like there have certainly been at least 3 waves, and I don't know how anyone can argue against that.
Yeah, it's changed so much, like to the point where like calling it all fourth wave almost feels a little disingenuous.
I understand that.
And I'm not saying, Brandon, by the way, that you're like being disingenuous, because I think that it's just
I would respect it if you were,
the narrative. It's just been the narrative for so long that this is fourth wave emo.
Yeah.
I think the main problem here comes from the fact that like everyone is like, oh, emo started with Rites of Spring, and then they don't talk about anything, and then they're like, oh, and then in 1994, Sunny Day Real Estate put out Diary, and that's like the second wave. And I think that doesn't really tell the whole story, because I think the first wave, you have like the Rev Summer stuff, which was obviously like had like precursors and stuff like Squirrel Bait and Articles of Faith, or like early Husker Du. I think that the Revolution Summer inspired sound, it lasted for a little bit longer than just that 1 year. Like you had like bands like Soulside and Ignition, who lasted like a little bit longer. And then second wave is you could argue that it kind of started with Moss Icon and The Hated, that kind of like 88 wave. And then by the time that like on the coasts, Native Nod in New York, and then Heroin in San Diego, like by the time that they really started like putting out material in 90, 91, this was emo like as like a specific subset of hardcore. and therefore like the demographics were pretty much inextricable from like the hardcore scene at the time. But I mean, there's like a wide variety of styles during this era. You have stuff like Current and Admiral that is like a little bit more melodic. Stuff like Garden Variety that's like almost like pop punk. And you know, stuff like Heroin, Clickatawi, Mohinder, Meryl, Iconoclast that is proto screamo. And then I think that what we call like Midwest emo or indie emo, that's like the third wave, because you saw definitely a big move away from bands that came from urban areas and more towards bands that came from the suburbs and rural areas. Hence the term Midwest emo, like, you know, Boys Life and Christie Front Drive. I think you could kind of argue started it, because I don't think Captain Jazz really like. I don't think they put out anything really influential until about 93 or 94. Even though they were like friends with Indian Summer and that whole thing.
But so the first wave of Midwest, that's still proto like the Promise Ring.
Yes. I think the Promise Ring started out as more of like a Midwest type band. And then when we hit wave 4, this is like 97 or so. And you have the Promise Ring putting out Nothing Feels Good. You have the Get Up Kids putting out 4 Minute Mile.
It's the Game Changer, yeah.
Yeah. Moving into 98, you know, Saves the Day putting out Can't Slow Down. Which is, to me, it's kind of like, I mean, in like the Midwest indie scene had its ties to hardcore. And then the early emo stuff is like, oh, this is like hardcore kids listening to like explicitly non-hardcore stuff, like Saves the Day going on tour with Bane. You're like, oh, they have ties, but they're not the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, my phone totally didn't die during all of that, and I was totally here, and I heard all of that.
Yeah.
I did not just run downstairs to connect the charger as fast as I could.
Right. For reference, I'm saying that 97 with the Promise Ring putting out Nothing Feels Good is the start of the fourth wave of emo. And this is when you saw like Vagrant Records reaching out to less in the know kids who were like less into like underground and DIY music, and kids who were like connected to the internet. And then from there, like the whole like Victory Records phenomenon started to spark up. And I think it's no coincidence that around the time that like the emo pop stuff was gaining steam, you also were seeing screamo happen, because screamo stuff like Seisha and You and I felt really explicitly like a throwback to emotive hardcore. Like this is still like a genre of music that's rooted in hardcore. So you have like the two divergent audiences already. And then the fifth wave, you have MTV emo, fucking The Used and My Chem and Fall Out Boy, and bands where, again, like they definitely are descended from hardcore, but it's getting harder and harder to like find that lineage unless you're like looking more closely. And this is also the era in which like the bands that were still playing Midwest emo were starting to incorporate like more post rock and space rock and like Radiohead influenced stuff.
Yeah,
like Embroco, Pop Unknown, Cross My Heart, and it was all coming out on Deep Elm. You know, stuff like Benton Falls, Branson, and I feel like this is kind of why I think that the narrative of emo got revived is bullshit. Because these bands were like absolutely still around up to 2004, 2005, 2006. And then the sixth wave, this is when you started seeing, definitely concentrated on the East Coast, especially Philly. You know, what I refer to as twinklecore, because these are like super energetic bands that came from like a hardcore background. Like Algernon came from Halfway to Holland, which were like kind of like what easycore would be if it was a lot less polished, and stuff like Street Smart Cyclist, and just like all this like hyperactive noodly emo stuff. You know, it kind of spread, stuff like Grown Ups. And what was like really tying all these bands together was that they were extremely DIY. Like this was not like This was not like a genre of music that you would see like NPR writing about, which is why I think that the seventh wave here, the modern baseball, sorority noise. Sorry, you can bleep that if you want. Hotelier kind of wave, where these bands were kind of written about in the same places as more popular indie rock bands or more popular pop punk bands, and started gaining that kind of audience and going on like different kinds of tours with those kinds of bands. I think that's why that's like its own thing. Like that's when people really start.
Where
talking
do you
about
think that exactly
revival.
starts, though? Like what's like the record?
About 2012, I think the record that kind of starts it is Modern Baseball Sports, and then in 2013, it's in full steam by the time of Whenever If Ever. In 2014, you get Home Like No Place.
Home Like No Place is probably like the last quintessential, like if you want to get into emo, like the last revival album. You know what I mean? That it's like this is like essential. Like you have to listen to this if you want to understand certain context.
Yeah. And then eighth wave, I think what happened is the people who were into the pop punk adjacent stuff either grew out of it because they grew out of like pop punk, or they just were already old to begin with. And a lot of the kids who were into, say, modern baseball around that 2014 to 2016 wave, I think you started seeing like all the kids who like discovered the Modern Baseball Marietta split and were like, oh, you can play like Twinkle. So I think that you saw kind of like this Twinkle revival thing happening. Like Best Buds came out in 2016, and that is like a very like stripped down, sort of like almost simplified version of the Twinkle scene or the Twinkle sound. 2016, you also see the first Prince Daddy LP, which is like instead of Twinkle, they're like adapting it into like Weezer-esque shred. You start seeing like the post bleep the J word, but the post wave of bands where you turn Twinkle into shred. Like you described it, you strike the chord and then do an arpeggio as fast as you can. I think that people got like so fed up with the constant of that sound. Like the bands that did it well obviously did it extremely well, like Oliver Houston and Perspective, A Lovely Hand to Hold. But then you also have people who are like, well, I'm sick of just like do 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 do. Like, can't we have like choruses again, or something besides just like showing off how fast you can play guitar? And then I think that's where you see again another demographic switch, this highly on Twitter, highly on Instagram group of kids, and I think it kind of really start like I would almost call it like a post Commander Salamander kind of scene, or like a post Origami Angel kind of scene, because I think those were the bands that like really, that was like the cohort of bands that really like started taking Twinkle into like a more angular, hard hitting direction, and kind of opened the floodgates for people to incorporate all sorts of like more disparate influences, which would put us in, I think currently we're in wave 9, or what everyone else would call fifth wave emo. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I mean, initially you were like, don't take this seriously, but I don't know how you don't.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think you should. I think that I have mental illness, and that's this is just like how I cope with my like fixations on things.
No, because I literally think of it almost the exact same way you do. I just use fifth wave as as a broadening system.
It's a blanket term. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like you'd say, like once you say ninth wave emo, you're gonna scare off some normies.
Yes,
like people that are gonna they're gonna be like, what is this? Fuck this. I'm just gonna go back to listening to whatever's Pitchfork reviewed 5 years ago and keep.
I'm gonna listen to that. You're gonna miss it all for like the 9 millionth time. Yeah.
Death break.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's such like a mic drop moment. But yeah, I do think that like the most gray area of those would probably be like the second wave of Twinkle, but like because it's like there was so much going on at that point.
Yeah, I think that I just like I was running out of characters, so I just wrote second wave of Twinkle as like a placeholder, but it really is, I think, like adaptations of the Twinkle sound that was happening, because I still think that like Prince Daddy, the way that like their guitar work functions is still very clearly like a descendant of Twinkly emo, even if it's like more sparkle punk.
Yeah, the revival. I like that word sparkle punk, though. I think that's a lot more apt than a lot of other descriptions I've heard.
Yeah, but people have been like so pissed at me for like calling it sparkle punk that I just stopped.
I think it's cute.
I think so too. We almost called it glitter mommies.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I'm curious as to what you guys think, because I think I said something that's I think might be somewhat controversial to one very specific music nerd on the internet. Not very specific, just anybody really. But like, how do you feel about the thing I said earlier, where fifth wave emo is like the most progressive and forward pushing era of emo since like second wave? Because I'm hearing some stuff going on that, like I said earlier, I don't think would have passed in like the 90s or the 2000s, or even like during the revival. I think people would have been like scratching their heads like, what is this? What are you doing to me?
Depending on how far you want to stretch the definition of emo, I think that like Fall Out Boy was doing some shit on Infinity on Higher and Folie à Deux that is really forward thinking, and almost feel like some stuff on Folie à Deux feels a lot more like the deconstructionist pop that started getting popular like a couple years ago. And there's also like a shit ton of modern bands that like are explicitly indebted to, for example, My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
And I think that My Chem had like a very specific type of sound because they had literally 10 million different influences. They had glam rock, Britpop, screamo, like all in like this crazy soup. So I think it's less that fifth wave emo is the most musically progressive style since the second wave, but more like they are the first wave to pick up on all of like the individual musically progressive acts from past eras, and they feel free to mix them together. Like people before like 2018, I would say, in like a DIY emo band, were maybe a little less upfront about the fact that they also loved, you know, Hawthorne Heights or whatever. You know?
True.
Like it's cool to mash up like uncool and cool influences. And you can see that also in like hyperpop.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think somebody called it like somebody jokingly called it fifth wave hyper emo to me a couple years ago, which I fully understand.
Yeah, I could live with hyper emo if people started calling it that. I mean, there's no like version of this music that you can call it that will ever be more embarrassing than emo. Like,
yeah, it is rough. There was a while where people asked me what kind of band I was in, like a punk band, and then maybe a half or so just unapologetically just been like, yeah, we're an emo band. That's it. You know, and then whatever comes into their mind comes into their mind, you know. But I'm not afraid anymore.
I hear some bass coming from someone.
I don't know what's going on, but like I just unplugged my headphones and plugged them back in because everything was starting to sound like bad. But then I could notice that you two were able to hear each other clear. So I think it might be okay. And it might just be my headphone connection. But also my computer is like running extremely fucking hot. So I'm not sure what's going on. And I'm a little concerned about how it's recording.
Okay. Does that mean that maybe we should try and like wrap this up?
Yeah. I would say just for the sake of the file itself.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I don't know. How do y'all want to wrap it up?
I would like to say thank you, Brandon, for coming on. It was really cool of you to do it, especially since I think we scheduled you like a little bit like last minute. So, or like only we didn't give you very much lead time, but we really appreciate you wanting to come on.
This
Especially
is my
since
favorite podcast. It was really easy
Hell
to
yeah.
accept. You know, I don't mean that like an advocacy way either. Like this is like the only one I like go out of my way to like listen to in full. And I don't know. I just like you guys a whole lot. I think what you're doing here is really, really cool and really entertaining as well.
Nice.
And informative. Infotainment.
edutainment.
Edutainment. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super glad to have you on at this moment where everyone's talking about the band and very happy to uncover some of the strange history of your band.
And it is strange.
Georgia
No denying
Battle of the Band winner 2018.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Shit. I will never live that down.
My sign off here is gonna be, I'm going to the doctor, doing some blood work, and I just was thinking about, I feel a little bit like, I'm not that young, but when we started doing this podcast I was like 21 or something, and so I feel like I kind of like grown up a little bit in public through it, and I've said like a lot of dumb shit that I either regretted immediately after I said it or regret now after like having a chance to think about it. So I just feel like people should know it's okay to like fuck up and say dumb shit every once in a while. At the end of the day, like no one is paying as close attention to you as you are to yourself. Everyone's like pretty wrapped up in their own shit, and all you can really do is try and be less embarrassing than you were the day before.
Post less.
Post less. Log off occasionally. I think we're
Home is
good.
where
Okay.
forever.
All right.
Home is where forever.